No Direction Home is the informal Soho directors community.
Tristan Gallagher, who produced Weekend, Andrew's actually second film, and who did a tremendous job for tuppence, making a very clever film, Weekend, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. Very simple, almost perfect for what it was trying to do, and that the success of that film, which by the way found it very hard to get it into any cinemas, didn't take very much money at all theatrically, but again built a kind of head of steam behind it, creatively and culturally, became a culturally significant film, and that made people like the BFI and Film 4 say to Andrew and Tristan, what do you got? And this was a short story that he'd read called Something Else, and he developed it brilliantly, and this is why I can claim no credit whatsoever. I made 2 or 3 comments on what was effectively a finished script by the time I read it. So our role in that was to support a regional filmmaker making a regional story in the regions. And I think we did a very good job at fitting in as great partners and putting it together for them. But as an executive producer, I visited set twice. That film was produced by Tristan Gallagher.
And did you have any hand in, for example, putting together any of the other financial relationships, any other funders?
Well, I mean, again, in very vague ways. I'd worked with the bank, K4Zia, so I could be friendly and a good face. It was my first film I put together, actually. So my first time working with the BFI on the other side of the table, this side of the table, if you like. Similarly with Film 4, I'd never done that. So no, I couldn't really add anything to that. I felt very, very empathetic to what he was going through as a recently independent producer, and there was stuff about the cut and how the cut was going to be agreed, which sort of excluded the filmmakers. It seemed like a very bizarre thing to me, and I worked very hard to make sure that the filmmakers had a voice. Not that it was ever necessary in the end, but it would actually be a part. That there would have to be a majority view. And if they couldn't muster a majority about the cut, that they would be squeezed out, but they would at least have a voice at the table. Depending on who they are, how experienced they are, and who the other money is, my role can feel very much like I'm producing the film, along with the other normally younger producers, talking about rewrites and locations and casting and all that stuff, to, frankly, just being a good egg partner at the financing table, trying to make sure this thing comes together in a timely fashion, so that you allow the filmmakers, including the producer, the time to concentrate on making a great film. I mean, that's what drove me nuts on being on the independent producer side, is that I would often spend crucial moments in prep, in a lawyer's office, arguing about T's and crossing T's and dotting I's.
So you mentioned, obviously we talked about when we were setting up the session and talked about before about keeping Rosy and 45 years. Yeah. 45 years has achieved a great critical reaction. It's won prizes for both the stars at Berlin. Yeah. Is it or Venice? Was it Berlin?
No, Berlin, and then Edinburgh it won the Michael Dudar Award.
And so, in your opinion, how does a critical reception that a festival run can generate affect the box office of an art house film?
Hopefully, I mean, it's when things go right, they just keep going right. And when things go wrong, it's the other way around. So there are, if you look at the history books of the winners of Berlin Festival, it didn't win Berlin. I would say a very large proportion have never been distributed in the UK, literally never seen at all in the UK, even though they won the Golden Bear. So there were lots of factors which came right. So your direct question, so the entry into Berlin made people think, oh, it's obviously a good film because it's got into a proper competition slot at Berlin, and then it won not one, but both Best Actor prizes. I think that was really significant, that it's double-hander, they both achieved it. And it just set people up to thinking, this is worthwhile. And at that point, that's when sales really started happening.
Find us at nodirectionhome.com.